Suits, how are you?
I'm well. I've been listening in, and we've got a lot to cover. We've got a lot to cover here, Maz. I mean, we've got a big wedding to cover. It's a big day in sports when we're talking weddings. Yeah, we've got the interview with Zach Collaros tomorrow. That your discussion on whether people will listen or they'll be so mad they don't. I think
They
that
will.
transcends the
They
game.
will.
Yeah, I think it transcends the game a little bit. That we should be listening to the even if we're talking politics. And I don't want to take you, Maz, down a political journey right here, real quick, because I know this could go sideways quickly between the two of us in a hurry. But my point is that let's listen to the other camp. You can still have strong beliefs, but let's listen. Like, not just wait for your turn to talk, but listen to what they're saying. There might be some nuggets in there, and I'll be listening tomorrow to Zach when he's in enemy territory talking about the Labor Day Classic.
Well, the thing about Caleros, don't forget, Rider fans, he was once part of Rider Nation, and because of some unfortunate circumstances of him getting hurt, and for him to go on and to win and all that, to be like, hey, I was happy he was able to play football again. And then to have success, listen, I was glad when we had him, but then we had to move on. And like Arash said, Toronto didn't want him and they got rid of him and he went. So I'm really looking forward to it tomorrow. My first question, are you going to be in Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce's wedding party? Question number one. I say
Yeah,
yes.
of
Yeah.
course. I would think so too. I mean, every time that we've talked about that, and we have on the air a few times now, the shots of him in the suite when he was at the game, and Travis was playing, and actually Taylor Swift, who by the way, my daughter absolutely adores and loves. So I know that's not a shocker, but he was in there, and we were talking about it on the air, and we rolled clips showing him in the booth, and um, I always remember that the sort of the homework that we did on it was that they're really close buddies. That
Yeah.
these two are roommates in college and very close, and if that's the case, then I would suspect that he's going to be part of the definitely in attendance, but part of the wedding party for sure. Yeah, here's a I'm going to say wishful thinking, Maz, and maybe I don't know, maybe just pie in the sky dreaming. But Zach, Travis, and Taylor get together after the party, and they're having a cocktail or whatever they drink afterwards, and they're just discussing the future, games, leagues. And Zach says, "Hey, Travis, why don't you and Taylor buy a CFL franchise and put it in Halifax? I'll run it when I retire from playing the game. You can be like the head of it all, Travis. You know the game, you know the marketing and all that stuff. You're involved. Taylor's kind of the money person, and
Kind
we
of.
buy a 10th. Yeah, kind of, and we get a 10th franchise in Canada. I mean, Ryan Reynolds did it with soccer over there in Europe, so why not? Wishful thinking, maybe.
Look at Suits. He's 10 steps ahead of the rest of us already. And this wedding announcement just came out. Here's the other thing, Suits, and I'm going to say this. Now, you're married, you got daughters. My wife saw the picture. She goes, I don't like the ring. And you know how big that is when women are showing off engagement rings. And I'm not saying that it's not expensive. It probably is, I'm assuming, close to seven figures. It's not the nicest engagement ring out there. All right. You could probably wander through the mall and find maybe something better. Colson, if you want to put up the photos, and far be it for me, and I don't know a lot, but right there, I'm like, yes, it's expensive, but it's a really odd shape. It looks kind of like a football if we're overanalyzing this.
Well, and I'm not sure of the backstory here. Maybe Zach knows for tomorrow, but did they go and pick this together, or is it something that Travis surprised her with, or
Yeah.
how did it come about, and what does it mean to them? I mean, that's the most important part. And you can go out and buy the nicest, richest, most expensive, uh, diamond on the planet, but if it doesn't have some sort of sentimental attachment between the two of you, then it's just a piece of jewelry. So,
I know.
there must be a backstory there with the ring and how they came up with that. And I'm sure they're both ecstatic about it. And I can't believe we've talked about weddings and rings this long.
Okay. So Suits, remember in the old days, there was those commercials. There was the 3-month salary guideline to buy an engagement ring for the woman
Right.
you're going to marry. So there's the CFL 3-month salary, there's the NFL, and then there's what Taylor Swift pulls in about 3 months. So if you had to go buy a billionaire, yeah, that's a giant diamond. All right, I get it. Like that is if there's any jewelers listening, text in. All right, let's move off the weddings. We'll get to that tomorrow. Suits on Saturday night. And I'm not sure, since you weren't doing the game, if you were just watching like a fan, but a really good Calgary Stampeder team beat a good Saskatchewan Roughrider football team at McMahon Stadium. And I think we saw the two best teams in the CFL play on Saturday night.
Yeah, I agree. And I watched it and of course tape it and then watch it back and then watch certain segments of it. And then, it's a tool for my work, is what watching games that I'm not doing really is. So, I took a look at it. There were, this is not an excuse for Saskatchewan, but that little bit of shuffling they had to do in the secondary, I'm sure affected their communication. It looked like they had some issues there in the back end, which hasn't happened all year. The other thing I noticed was in the trenches, there were two reasons that I think Calgary won the war in the trenches. Whether they were on offense or defense didn't matter. I thought they won in both, on both sides. So there's two ways you can lose. One is assignment, that you miss your assignment. Say Saskatchewan's offensive line misses this assignment, doesn't slide in the direction they're supposed to slide, and there's a free player that goes through the A or B gap. Now, the A gap is between the center and the guard on both sides. The B gap's between the guard and the tackle on both sides. And if you have a free player in those gaps, it's probably a mistake. You're not letting a direct line to your quarterback on a passing play with a defensive lineman or linebacker. It's either a miss block by a back if it's a blitz, or if it's just a 4-man pressure situation, it's definitely a mistake on the offensive line. So there were a couple of those mistakes that were made. I thought there's a great Colson nailed it. That's a great B-side. That's looks like the B gap, and there was a mistake made, and you saw turn around and get angry about it, that he thought there was a communication gap there. So that stuff, Maz, you can fix. Okay. So that stuff is stuff that you go back and look at the film and you go, okay, I slid the wrong direction. I stepped to the wrong guy, whatever it is, whatever the mistake that's being made there, you can correct it. You can fix that mistake. The ones that I would be concerned with if I'm Corey Mace is the ones where you got physically beat, or which can happen too, or you just lost the jump ball. Like I wouldn't be as, or sorry, I should say, I wouldn't be as worried about those ones for Corey, the physical ones, because they get paid too. They have a very good team too, as you mentioned, and they're going to win battles. But I think the combination in this game was mental mistakes, correctable. That's what Corey Mays should be really emphasizing. We can fix the mental mistakes. That's what he should be upset with. Fix those, but not be as upset about, hey, there was a jump ball. The receiver caught it. Our DB didn't. And next week we will. So you don't slough it off, but you say you can be beat physically in a game and respect the opponent enough to say, hey, they got good players too. The mental mistakes they got to clean up. It was a combination of both of those things that was the reason they lost by as much as they did. And it didn't really feel close in that game, really. I thought Calgary had control of it from start to finish.
They were up 14-2. The Riders came back, made it 15-14 at halftime. And Suits, at McMahon, we're all standing in line getting beer. All right, Trevor Harris has got it going. Watch out, second half. Here it comes. The magic was back. They had us,
Yeah.
like that saying, they had us in the first half, but here we come. The Riders scored no points in the second half. After the game, Dave Dickinson said, Trevor Harris is a rhythm passer. And they were able to get him out of his rhythm. It seemed like Trevor Harris had no time to do anything. Charleston Hughes thinks it's because they always took away his first read and that there was nothing there. Next thing you know, there was a man on him because of how aggressive, but with restraint, their D line was playing.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, if you lose a couple of matches physically up front, and let's just say their D lineman beat them, beat the O lineman in front of them. If you give up a couple of those, you can live with them because you say, okay, well, they won that. They won that play. It's okay. No problem. You give up those plus 3 or 4 mental mistakes up front that are correctable mistakes where a guy just is free to the quarterback, then you have some reason for concern because you've got to clean those up. Against a good team, the mistakes can't happen, especially when it comes to protecting your own quarterback. So yeah,
I felt bad for Trevor. He was getting steamrolled, and by the fourth quarter,
yeah.
and there was that one hit there where he got planted in the turf. It looks like he got up wobbly, and then they took him to the tent. But I guess they assessed he was able to come back in and play. And I'm like, man, oh man, like it just for everything that was going right with the Riders, and they made it look very easy when they were beating other teams. It came to a sudden stop on Saturday. And we were just not used to seeing it, I don't think. We're just not used to seeing that because they have handled everything with ease on offense and defense so far.
Right. And there's been times in other games that they've won and looked very good on offense that Trevor Harris has gone to his second or third read when the first was taken away, to Charleston's point, which I'm sure happened in the game. But, if that did happen, Trevor was being hit a split second later. So there wasn't time for him to go to number 2 and number 3. And it wasn't because of a bunch of Calgary exotic blitzes either. If that was the case, then it's a receiver quarterback communication, issue that they need to continue to work on to get those hot routes and get the ball out of Trevor's hands when they can't block everybody. Not can't, but they don't have enough numbers. So, I think Charleston's probably bang on. There were times where he took away the number 1 read and Trevor in past games has gone to number 2 and completed and they moved the chains. This time he looked at number 1 and bam, he didn't have a chance to go to number 2 because that D line was getting after it and either a mistake was made up front or they were winning their one-on-ones. One you can fix, the other you just gotta dig in. You just got to dig in and win more of those one-on-one battles than you lose.
As we get set for the Labor Day Classic on Sunday, last week the Winnipeg Blue Bombers beat the Montreal Alouettes 26-13. That was the team they played. Nobody knew that Montreal was going to be on their 4th or 5th quarterback, or I've lost count because it's a revolving door there now. You wonder if they would have kept Cody Fajardo because it's not like McLeod Bethel Thompson came for $75,000. They would have had to pay him good money. Maybe not Cody starter money, but Cody would have been a nice security blanket in a situation like this. But he's in Edmonton now, so they're dealing with that. Winnipeg goes in and does what it needs to do. It beats Montreal. Regardless of who they were lining up against, they won that game. But Suits, what I saw from them is a running game that's gaining momentum. They were doing some things. They were overcoming some injuries. They're battling this adversity. They're learning how to win when the conditions aren't necessarily ripe for winning. I'm a little concerned as a Rider fan because I don't know if we've faced as much adversity as the Bombers so far yet this year.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think the Bombers have faced a ton of adversity this year. They just signed a couple of new receivers. I think Kyron Moore is one, and Cam Eccles was the other, a former Stampeder, because they've been hit in the injury bug in that area. So that's going to be tough. If either of those two guys are playing on Labor Day, how much of the playbook could they have absorbed by now? So, that's not a lot of time to be ready. And they have faced adversity. This is what I see when I see Winnipeg. I still see the talent in Zach and Brady Oliveira and their defense with Willie Jefferson leading the way to win games. What I think is not there now that has been in the last 5 years is this cloak of invincibility that when they walk in the stadium, they're already up a touchdown because the opponent is getting in his own mind that this is the best team in the league. This is the best team in the West. We're gonna have to do something special today to beat this team. And when you start thinking that way, that's when you creep out of your own zone as a DB to help out someone else, or you have a feeling on something because you need to make the big play, and then you end up getting burnt because you left your spot, and all you had to do was take care of your job. Really, that's when those things happen. So I just think Winnipeg has kind of lost that. I don't know, that magic dust that they used to have. That it was sort of, this team is going to be very, very tough to beat. Now you look at them and you go, yeah, they're definitely beatable. They still have the talent that if you don't play your best, you are going to lose. They still have the leading rusher in the league, or top rusher in the league, and I know as a team they lead the league in rushing per game. So that's part of their DNA, has been for 5 years. So that hasn't changed. And they still have Zach. Zach can beat you. So just like Trevor. So, but Maz, you're the one who called this out. You said, I'll be convinced if the Riders can beat them on Labor Day, which no matter what our record is, we always seem to, or more than not, we seem to win that game. And then go into Winnipeg in the Banjo Bowl and beat them there. You do those two
next
things.
Time. Yeah, you do. Yeah. If you beat Winnipeg 3 times, twice in their house, nobody should stop us from winning the Grey Cup. Okay, so your former teammate Richie Hall and Jordan Younger. So they watched that game on Saturday. They watched that film. And Richie has been able to dial up in the past some incredible defense. Just you think, I'm like, how are they throwing new wrinkles? There's no new wrinkles, Suits. This game's been around a long time. But do they do exactly what the Stampeders did? Do they have the personnel to do exactly what the Stampeders did? Or how does their plan have to be different to attack our weaknesses?
Well, I'm not sure the personnel is the same, for one. They have good personnel, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's the same. I think that Hutchings in the interior of the Calgary D-line, or Rimolade on the edge, Hicks on the edge of that D-line, that's a top group. I mean, I said last week that collectively I thought the Rider D-line was probably the best in the league, and Calgary would be 1A. I think there's some talent up front where they're going to win some one-on-one battles, even with veteran offensive linemen. The Bombers still have Willie, and you have to game plan against Willie, I think. I think on key second downs, stop throwing around him. I know that
move
oversimplified.
Yeah, move the pocket. Get away from him.
Yeah, but just on the key second and longs, if Trevor had an audible to say, Willie's lined up on the left, I'm rolling right. We're not going to try and throw it around that oak tree. Enough of that. It's difficult to game plan against the D lineman. You don't really do that, but you can chip them in a lot of things. So to answer your question though about the coaching strategy, absolutely they will steal from the Calgary tape. They'll take a look at that and they're going to see what they did coverage wise and things like that to make Trevor hold it that extra second. They'll probably try and copy a little of that. And then they have to rely on their own personnel to win enough one-on-one battles. What they shouldn't even consider is that the Riders will make the same mental mistakes that they made in Calgary.
Agreed. I mean, they'll do that. One of the things that came up, and we know football's a game of momentum, because very early in the game, the Riders' first drive on offense, they got gifted a pass interference penalty, which upon review, if that would have got overturned, come on, Rider Nation, that was not a pass interference call, but it got you down.
No.
There was, whether it was a drop or a touch of an overthrow, Keyshawn Johnson has made that catch all year. It could have put the Riders up 7-0. Then, well, at least we're going to settle for a field goal here. We're going to be up 3-0 on the road, scoring points first drive. Let's get it going and keep it going. And then Lothar misses, and you held a lot of field goals for a certain guy. Does your head drop just a little bit when you see that go wide to be like, oh no? Because you know what the implications are mentally, scoreboard-wise. You know our fan base, Glenn. We're not stable. There's a lot of people that all this hands in the air. It's the first quarter, but for a lot of us, that's it.
Yeah. You know, I heard you guys talk earlier in the show about the locker room and how they may be thinking of this, because those type of things, that does affect the locker room. I mean, you start to have doubt. You start to doubt, you know, does it get to a point where you start to change your play calling because you're not quite sure if Brett's going to hit it and make it? Mm-hmm. You know, like if you're going down that road and it's starting to affect your in-game strategy because you're not completely convinced, then it may be time to make a change. And you know, you got young guy in camp. You bring another young guy if you need to. I don't think you make a trade yet. I think you keep Brett on the practice roster or on the injured list if there's room for him there, so that you're not. You know, I've been saying for 3 weeks now, I think Brett's going to work his way out of it. But that one tells me that maybe this is, you know, an issue. And you know, if you're physically getting beat all the time, the coach is going to make a change. The same can be said for if you're mentally struggling. And I don't mean the mental health world. I mean, you've lost confidence. If you've lost confidence and you can't work your way out of it, then the coach is obligated, because he is responsible for the entire team. He has to start thinking about making a change. And I've been on Brett's, you know, I've been on his side for a month now. But we're getting to a point where if you're going to bring someone new in, give him at least 2 or 3 games to settle in, you know, especially if he hasn't played in the league. And, you know, if you're going to stay with Brett, then be prepared that it might come back. He is struggling mentally. I mean, you can't sugarcoat it. That was a chip shot. That was a make it in your sleep kick.
That was less than a convert. That was less than a convert. Yeah. Because Suits on Sunday, let's say there's no wind, like on Saturday, wind wasn't a factor. The Winnipeg Blue Bombers, all they need to do, because of Castillo and the way that Mike O'Shea is an aggressive coach, if they get to the 50 of the Riders, they're kicking that field goal every time. They're never not, because of the confidence that he has. So if all Zach's got to do is just get it to the Riders 50, if the drive stall is there, they're going for 3. Unless for some reason, because we've seen his appetite to be like, my kicker's making these kicks, let's try and take the points. We don't have that in our back pocket on our side like they do. And that's an advantage to the Bombers at the moment, just because of how everything lines up statistically. That take the name Lothar off it. If that was the Rider field goal kicker, but you've seen what Castillo is doing from long range, automatically that's an advantage. If that's a key, one of your keys to the game is, and special teams, field goal kicking, for them, checked box.
Yep.
Because they can do it from long range and we can't.
So in that scenario, so let's say you're down by 2, and if it's Winnipeg down by 2, they try that 55-yarder or even 60-yarder, depending on how much wind there is or whatever. O'Shea has no problem doing that. In fact, he was questioned it when Castillo actually missed one. Yeah. But he'll do it. And what Corey Mace's options there, based on what we've seen for the last month, he probably goes for it on 3rd down. You
Hmm.
know, I mean, you're down by 2, you're at midfield. He goes, I'm not sure if my kicker's going to make it from there. I just don't have the confidence that he will. You know, and he's not going to say that out loud, but it'll be in the back of his mind. And he goes, you know what? Let's go for it on 3rd and 2. That
Hmm.
fires up the Bomber defense. It's game over if you don't get that short yardage play. So, you know,
Yeah.
I think there is an edge that the Bombers have because they have a confident kicker, and for some reason Brett has lost his confidence. And you know, again, I've been behind him, but at some point you've got to show the team that if your game drops off and you are becoming extremely inconsistent, that we can't trust you, then we've got to make a change. And if you don't do
Mhm.
that with one guy and you do it with other guys, that's when you have an issue in your room.
All right. You are calling the game this Sunday, right? Correct?
Yeah, I can't wait. I'm back in the saddle. I'm off the fishing boat.
Oh,
I'm off the fishing boat and back in the saddle for Labor Day weekend. The 60th.
if
Unreal.
I know. And tonight they're showing at the Saskatchewan Archives, they're showing footage from the first one in 49, and Rob Vanstone's going to be curating. There's going to be a Q&A. It starts at 7 tonight. Mission's free. You're going to go there to be like, I wanted to know how many Pilsners did they sell back in 49 at the first one? You know, was anybody wearing a Pilsner cowboy hat made out of a beer box? You know?
Well, I know there was many a story of fans from both the Bombers and fans from the Riders who are trying to find the hotel that the Bombers are staying at and be as loud as they possibly can at 4 in the morning and stuff to try. I remember all those stories. And when I was playing, there were a lot of years that we didn't have a good record going into Labor Day. And I tried to forget those years, but it's hard. And we always seem to play our best game of the regular season on Labor Day. And one of the reasons for that is the crowd comes with such great intensity that it does give you a little more juice as a player. But also the opposition, that's what home field advantage can do. The opposition offense loses the snap count. And that gives your defense a huge advantage because the advantage they have in a home game or in a regular season game on the road where the fans are loud but they're not crazy, you could still hear Zach calling the signals. He has the snap count, so he knows when the ball's coming back. The defense has to react after the ball moves. That little split second there is crucial in winning and losing a play. On Labor Day, the Bombers will lose the snap count on offense. They won't be able to hear it. They'll have to look, their receivers will have to look down the line and look at the ball move before they can hit the line of scrimmage. So that takes it makes them a split second behind the play. The defensive line's already for the Riders is already getting up the field, and Zach is looking for their receiver who is just now getting out of his break. That all contributes to why Labor Day, it's so hard for the Bombers to win in Saskatchewan on Labor Day.